Hi, Zach.
Hello, Tim. Allegedly,
Great to see you.
Great to
Yes.
see you. Allegedly, the Super Bowl will be announced probably later in the world, in the coming months. But they're saying it's going to be Miley Cyrus and Harry Styles. What are your thoughts
Oh,
on
really?
that? Yeah,
Well, I mean, they're big. They're big A-list superstars.
I
So
know.
I think great from a publicity standpoint. Not necessarily the biggest amongst the football crowd, but kudos to the NFL to broaden their audience.
Still
I
mad
think.
Taylor Swift said no. That would have been great, but she did. This made me think of something that you went to recently. You went and saw Ed Sheeran at a concert. Did he do an Eminem song there?
Well, that song is a Eminem Ed Sheeran collaboration. So
It
he just
is.
did. Yeah. So
So
when he did it in Detroit, it was just easy for him to call on Eminem to come on stage, which I
but
guess
Eminem
Eminem
did.
doesn't tour.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It
but
was a
he did
good
do that song.
rendition. It was great. He sang the Dido part really good. Brought me back to like 2000. Driving down in my 1978 Caprice Classic. With in-house speakers in the trunk. I don't know when that song came out. So Eminem did not come to DC. It's not like he tours with him. Does that? No.
No, he does now. He just happened since he lives up and is from Detroit. It worked out for him to do that show.
Is it disappointing to see that some musicians come out in situations like that and then not the ones that you're at?
I've never been to a show where there happened to be somebody that was a surprise guest appearance. I guess that's a downfall of us living in the cul-de-sac of Virginia, right? That just
there's a lot of musicians from here.
yeah. But in terms of, I'm trying to think. Now, I think in recent history, I think the only time that I can remember, Gwen Stefani did a show at the amphitheater, and Blake Shelton came out to do a duet with her, and so that made some headlines.
Are they married?
They are.
All right. Well, that's not that ridiculous.
But that was before. Yeah, that was before they were married.
I see. Today's show has nothing to do with music. Maybe we'll get in and talk to some music. Today we have a wonderful guest. Richard, we have, fun fact. People probably don't know this about me. We both share the exact same first name. Congratulations.
First time.
Oh. Huh.
175 episodes. We're there.
My first question for you is, as a child, did people call you Dick or did they call you Richard?
No, I can't start off with that.
No ease and in, just go straight to it.
So typically when people say, hey, do you want to be called Richard or Rich? And I say to them, anything as long as it doesn't begin with a D. So thank you for starting off straight away with my one thing.
Have you ever heard this story, Tim? In 6th grade,
yeah,
substitute teacher. Yeah. So like he's going through roll call and he gets to my name. He goes, Richard, Dick, is Dick Miller here? And I'm like, that's when everyone started to learn that there was a nickname for the name Richard. That was Dick. And it was just like, well, that's not a good name to go by. People.
I now go by Zack.
I went by Zack. I went by my middle name, but he jumped on that. Yeah, it was embarrassing to say the least. That's probably the reason why I hate doing the talk around the table networking thing. Like introduce yourself. Just it's the only time I've ever been embarrassed in my entire life. So
sure. I've worked closely with Noel James here, who's our managing director, my partner in crime, Southern Virginia, and her husband, like the first couple of weeks I met him, came over to my house and had a hat that said, "Don't be a Richard," which I was like, that's another way of bringing back the Dick word into my name. I'm a little sensitive about the Dick word. Yeah, no, not gonna lie.
I need that hat.
Begins with an R.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
This podcast, probably everyone will start calling me that. I'll be sensitive.
Well,
I hope not.
We'll talk about Startup Virginia, which is the organization that you are representing. Tell us a little bit about Startup Virginia and what services, what offerings you provide for the entrepreneurs around the state.
Great. Startup Virginia is a nonprofit high growth business incubator, we call it. Essentially, we help startups grow faster and smarter than they would on their own. We do that by providing mentoring, coaching, programming, a lot of one-to-one tailored guidance, including like fundraising prep, connections. So essentially creating a place in a community where founders can help founders and where the Startup Virginia team can help them, as well as our awesome corporate partner and mentor community. So we tend to focus on providing tailored services to help startups grow and become successful. And we're also very fortunate to have an amazing physical space in the Michael Wassman Innovation Center, also known as 1717, in the heart of Shockoe Bottom in the city of Richmond.
Zack, have you ever been to 1717? I have not. I need to make my way up there.
Yeah,
sometime.
absolutely need to. I mean, it really is. It's awesome. Like, you can go to any other startup ecosystem in the country, and I think to San Francisco and New York, and they'd be proud of the physical space that we have.
I don't think I have. I think I was supposed to go there, and then the old Coco happened, and then shut all that down. I think I've been to a Startup Virginia space in like 2016, 2017. I don't know about dates. Somewhere between 2015.
Yeah, you're probably where we were incubating in the farmers market area.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I did some sessions with some people there, some businesses there, if I recall. Yeah.
That's when Larkin and our three founders kind of test bed Startup Virginia we called it the Annex.
The Annex, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
And during that time, they were renovating this building for us to move into.
Got it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I guess I've been to the pre-1717 building for you guys, but I don't think I've ever. Is that the Capital One building? Yes.
Well, essentially. So I can give you a brief history if you guys want.
Yeah. Well, I would love to know about the space. Yeah, the characteristic size.
So essentially, we have three founders at Startup Virginia. They worked with Larkin Garvey on getting Startup Virginia off the ground, which is predominantly purpose was how can we just help our founders by connecting them with the right resources. During that time, they also had a local angel group called CVA Angels, and they got to know the founders. And there's a lot of feedback saying, "Hey, why don't we find a space where we can all work together?" So Brad and Will went on the hunt, found this awesome building in the heart of Richmond in Shockoe Bottom, bought it, and then the idea was to have an incubator on the first floor that would help pay, and then rent out the other floors that were totally unfinished to help pay for the incubator. That's how they got to know Capital One and the Capital One team, and they came back to our founders and say, "Hey, we love what you're trying to build. Why don't we buy the building off you and really deck it out, and you can rent from us and make it an innovation center, an entrepreneurial hub." And that's what they did. So in 2016, we were incubating ourselves in the Annex, and in 2017, in March 2017, we moved into the Michael Wassman Innovation Center. And here we have Startup Virginia has 2 to 3 floors, about 5,000 square feet each for our subsidized workspace, open workspace and offices for our startups members and community members. And floor 5 is Capital One space, uniquely for them. And then just recently, last year, we had 2 awesome tenants move in, Bridging Virginia and Metropolitan Business League, which is now the largest minority association in the state of Virginia, move in the first floor. So we're really working hard on making this a good front door of entrepreneurship and for our region. And we also have a kick-ass rooftop for events, which we do a lot of our events in. So it's super fortunate to have it. Great resource for entrepreneurs, great resource for us nonprofits in the region.
Yeah, I mean, I see some of the graphics that you guys push out, and some of those graphics as pictures of the rooftop bar. And I mean, it looks so nice that it almost doesn't seem like it's real. But kudos to you to have such a cool space.
Cool. You should come and do a podcast up here one time.
Yeah, we need to make that happen.
Yeah.
So
how many? I was just curious, how many members? Is there any particular verticals that you all focus on?
Yeah. So we have about 80 members. We have 80 when we moved into the building, we were about 40. We're now at 80, of which I would say half utilize the space, or maybe 2/3 utilize the space as the day-to-day space, and the other third just for the programming that we offer. We focus on scalable tech or manufactured product. So to be part of what we call the incubator, you have to demonstrate that your idea or business can scale exponentially, either through tech or through a product. And then once you're accepted, you go through our programming and have, what we like to say, a wide array of buffet of options that you can take advantage of. But as an incubator, it's your responsibility to and with our guidance to try and plug into the same to what you're at right now. We've also developed a lot of other programs to help feed the incubator. So, for example, we have the Idea Factory, which we're currently accepting applications for, and thank you for Tim for helping us spread the word on that, which is a 7-week idea acceleration program. A lot of customer discovery work, a little similar to the ICAP program. We definitely complement them. It's just more focused on after hours. And then we also have a entrepreneur certificate course that we white label for other entrepreneur support organizations or higher ed, and just got a high school actually so they can start teaching entrepreneurship 101 classes to their students or participants. So that's also been a great tool that we launched as a result of the pandemic. It used to be our most successful in-person program, and then we digitalized all of it in Teachable. It's all taught through our mentors, and are now able to white label it for organizations across the state, and we don't charge them for that.
There's a ton of resources. There's a ton of resources that you guys provide. There's a ton of resources that it seems like every city in the country has for entrepreneurs. How do you guys track what's working, what's not, what's useful, what's not? Like what makes you guys different? Like we got a ton here. I produce a ton of them myself. Tim's done wherever he is. Tim's done a ton of them. What's the sauce that's working? What's not? Like, how do you figure out, like, this is what entrepreneurs want? This is what they need? Give us the rundown on all that.
Yeah, so I think after the last 5-6 years, that what entrepreneurs need is different for every single one. I think that's why when I look back at our most successful, examples or like founders that definitely seem valued by being a member of Startup Virginia is finding those one-to-one connections, either through mentors or through corporations or through an investor. It's like really trying to open that relationship of trust and having them reaching out to us and say, hey, I need help with this, and us finding the right resources to do that. And I think over the last 5 years, we've built a really good network of a lot of different resources that founders can take advantage of. So just building that culture of trust. Also find that, the more tenured founders are super helpful to the aspiring founders, and having a space in the community where those connections can be made and they can provide that mentoring themselves to founders is also super helpful. So what we do, a lot as far as like other organizations, we just actually did a competitive analysis just to see like other nonprofit entrepreneur support organizations in the state and outside of the state. What do they do well? How do they, pitch themselves, and compare, what we're doing right, what areas of opportunity for us. So in the process of continuing to do that, I think what's pretty unique to Virginia is that basically every ESO is a nonprofit. So I think that's pretty unique to our region. And I think that comes with a lot of pros and sometimes a little bit of challenges on the fundraising side. But overall, as I said before to the show, I think Virginia has done an amazing job the last 5-6 years in scaling up resources for entrepreneurs, no matter where they live. I think it's very regional, and I think it should continue to be that way because, we're all motivated to try and build our own ecosystem. But when we can collaborate, which we do, and learn from each other, and frankly steal from each other when it works, then we should continue to do that.
What's an ESO?
I agree.
What's an ESO? An ESO?
Sorry, Entrepreneur Support Organization.
Got it. Okay. Tim.
Yeah, we recently had a VAN offsite. So VAN being a Virginia Accelerator Network. So credit to VIPC. Boy, we're filled with acronyms today. The Virginia Innovation Corporation,
Partnership Corporation.
Partnership Corporation. They had an offsite where they brought in all the entrepreneur support organizations together so that we could talk about our programs, lessons learned, and so it's really neat from that standpoint to see, hey, oh, that's working for you. Like we, for example, with Star Peninsula, we do a thing called Meet the Resources, Lighthouse Labs. Then they heard something and they did something similar, and it was like, hey, take it, run with it. It's super cool, and if it works for you, that's great. So it's nice to collaborate from that sense, to share what works and pass that around. But the takeaway that I had from attending that offsite was the fact that, I don't know if other states do anything like that, where they take entrepreneurship from a state level to really compare notes, to share the lessons learned, how to be successful. And I think that it's a great win for the state and for the founders.
Yeah, I think VIPC, so again, Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation, which is a separate, it is a state, but it's run separately as a nonprofit. They have done truly remarkable work, I would say, the last 3-4 years on trying to work collaboratively with organizations like spread across the state. And I say that because it's not only asking us, what we need help with, but it's also they provide operational funding, which is so important rather than just programmatic funding. But not only do they do that to help us build our own resources in our program and increase our sustainability, they're also the most active venture organization in the state of Virginia as well. And to help feed that, they also have grant opportunities for folks who are trying to validate their idea. So as an organization that works with tenured founders who are ready to fundraise and can take advantage of the venture arm, and as an organization that works with aspiring entrepreneurs that we can help guide and coach and do customer research so they can possibly get a non-dilutive grant so they can work on their idea full time to hopefully be fundable in the future. Now that we have that funding roadmap, it helps significantly. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for putting the infrastructure in place. And I hope we can only do more, right? It's vital. As I think I read, but this was a couple of years ago, so our data, but Virginia was ranked 46th in the nation as far as startup activity. So we really need organizations like VIPC to lean in and help us improve that metric significantly.
How does that statistic, how do they figure that out? Because there used to be the Kaufman thing that said, we are in a lot higher number than 46. So and at that point, Kaufman was, the go-to for, startup data. So I always question.
I think Kaufman focuses on small business, not tech or scalable. I think there's a big difference between the two. So I think Kaufman focused heavily on more traditional small business. Just look at the number of licenses that have been. This was looking at more from a funding venture standpoint than a creation of small businesses. So they'll look when you refer to startup activity, they're more looking at which startups are being funded by VCs, are doing seed rounds, are doing Series A, Series B, Series Cs. So I think it's a different stat.
That's a surprising stat, though, knowing that there are some major universities in the state, that DC and then Northern Virginia, maybe DC isn't.
DC's not included, yeah.
Its own thing, but that's a pretty low number.
Yeah, it is. Again, this was 2-3 years ago, so I'm sure.
Still, I don't think people would have thought that was the case. I think they would have thought they were in the teens, in the 20s at worst, not 46.
Yeah,
that captured a lot of attention when that number came out, and a lot of work going into changing that number. Yeah, and I don't know how often that number they reevaluate or how often that number is released or not. But one of the things that I appreciate so much about all of us, here we're in Hampton Roads, you're in Richmond. We're super close to one another, and at the end of the day, founders are going to go wherever they need to get the time, the love, the resources to make their business successful. So any opportunity that we all have to take the locality or the geography aspect out of it, that we all can work together as a winning team to help founders win, I think is is really, really important.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, we're 45 minutes away, really, on a good day. But I
It's a
think
real good day.
yeah. Well, I'm considering Williamsburg in that.
Yeah.
So like,
Okay.
But no, I mean, especially with like Tim, and you got Paul Noldy now going down there with the Richard Market. Well, I think the doors are wide open, and we've also sort of thanks to Van, developed a good relationship with Shenandoah and Charlottesville. So I think that and down with Ramp in Roanoke. So I think that whole 64, 81 corridor is starting to thrive and allow us to continue to do the work on supporting aspiring entrepreneurs and current entrepreneurs. So I'm excited. I think the infrastructure is in place for Virginia to do a lot better. But there are a lot of things that we can continue to work on to make it better, for sure.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the business owner is going to go wherever they see fit. And it's always interesting to me that like cities compete in these things, and it's like, hey, you know what? Like they're gonna do what they want to do. They don't care the same way that you guys do. Like if they see something cross borders or somewhere else, like that's what they're gonna do. They just doesn't bother with them. And so it's always interesting to see that dichotomy of what cities think, what states think, and then what the actual business owner is willing to do. So
yeah, so I went to our team was in a city visit to Kansas City, and they're doing amazing work around entrepreneurship. And I was listening to their economic development arm on how economic development organizations need to start thinking differently about, especially since the pandemic, like instead of focusing on so much on trying to bring jobs to the region, every new startup, every new business that's formed in your regions is automatically an HQ. So why spend so much time focusing on trying to bring other HQs in here when you could really help and grow your own HQ in your own backyard, right?
Well, you teed Zack up perfectly. Continue on.
And I think that's a great shift in mentality that needs to happen, especially look at the amount of resources that go in that sector.
Where am I going to go with this, Tim? I mean, like so like literally probably 2013, I was like to our city. I think this is a Norfolk meeting. It might have been a Hampton Roads thing. They're like, oh, our goal should be to recruit 4 1,000 person companies here. And I stand up. I'm just starting to like become somebody where people like know who I am, type of thing. And I'm like, that's the most bogus thing I've ever heard in my life. Why don't you flip flop that and try to start 1,000 companies with 4 people? And they were just like, that's the stupidest thing ever. And literally for years, all of these economic development folks in cities were like, that's not the way we do business. I'm like, but this, like, why would a business have 1,000 employees if they can figure out the same thing with 4 employees? And they hated my concept. Some will say that they didn't. But like, I used to get so much resistance. And I'm just like, look, we could support thousands of businesses with a handful of employees each, and they can be making similar revenues. Like, I think we should look at this, and some of those might grow into bigger companies, from an employee perspective. And it's interesting that Kansas City sounds like is saying what I was saying a decade ago, and now we're telling other people that, hey, this is the way to look at it, when our own backyard didn't want to look at that, years ago. So maybe they'll change their mind. And when they do, I'll just bow down and say, told you.
Well, I mean, I talk about that. I mean, timing is everything.
Yes. To be fair to Kansas City, this was one of the economic development arms, and then we went to another session, and it was a different EDA, and they had a total different, way of looking at things. So, like, they weren't too different.
It's just I don't think I've ever even said this word, so I don't even know what the meaning is. But it seems like disheartening that like you don't even believe in the people in your own place, right? It's like you don't even support. They're gonna yell at me. They would yell at me and be like, "We do support whatever." But it's just like you seem to put so much more attention on and energy on other places to try and move that thing here or to wherever your city is. The people who are in your city who could have a similar impact, it's like invest in those people. And I still believe that they should invest more in the local community, the local businesses. because
So here's a good stat for you.
Makes
So I'm
sense.
looking at so tagging onto that 46 stat. So I'm looking at a stat from the Census Bureau, Moody's Analytics. Job creation associated with startups. Where do you think Virginia falls? In the top quartile, second quartile, third quartile, or bottom quartile?
well, and knowing the capital number, I would say if it's 46, I would say it's in the bottom.
Well, no, it's not. So we're obviously doing it's in the third quartile.
Okay.
Though we're a state that was number one in doing in business in the nation for many, many years, and it's consistently in the top 5. You would think we would be better, right? And
Statistics are always something that, like, I always am like, okay, I saw that stat. Now let's peel back the onion and really let's figure out what it's actually saying, right? And so, like, what's the full story on something? And as a guy who has a journalism degree, as a guy who basically still, I guess you could call this media, still is running in media, it's like headlines can be very manipulating and very misleading to people. And a lot of people will just look at that and say, okay, 46. And then it's like, okay, let's peel back the onion and figure that out. And it's like, okay, of that. So I don't know what that is, but you could look at it and say, well, there's a huge grouping of 30 states in there that are all basically the same. So it could be 15 to 46. I'm not saying that's the case, but you could look at something like that from a data perspective and be like, okay, well, this story's a little misleading in this, or it's just, you can't just look at a number and say, that's it. You can't just look at your bank account and be like, oh, on day 1, you have $5, knowing that on day 2, $10 is coming out of the bank. So you really know that you have negative $5, but you're thinking you have $5, but because you're not looking deeper, you're not telling the story, though, you're not looking at the full story on this, you're manipulating a scenario. And it's just like, let's look at a full picture of this. And I think that's incredibly important. And most people don't look at that. They look at one line and say, okay, this is it. I read it. I see it. And it's like, well, let's look at the full story.
I think this is Richard Wintsch's opinion. The full story is Virginia is starting to do really good work in supporting entrepreneurs. Anyone who has a current business or an idea, there is a resource for them. And I think Virginia has built a great network, and DIPC is feeding that. The reason I believe we rank low in those statistics right now is just the funding that takes place for startups in our state. So I'm not sure, Tim, Zack, you knows your scalable startups in your region, but I would say the majority of their funding, once they get to late seed, Series A, is from a strategic advisor outside of the state of Virginia. That's what we see with our startups.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So, how can we get to a point as a region where we can be that strategic advisor for those companies at those size? Right. And this is a marathon; it's not a sprint. But I think, I think VIPC with their venture arm are definitely, especially with the SSBCI effort coming on, well, hopefully that will change. But I think we have to acknowledge that in order to be in the top quartile, we will need to have a more robust fundraising environment in our state. And I'm not sure if we ever get there.
And we talked about this last week with Paul Nolde, just in the sense of, if you look at a VC or a VC firm and they have a fund, that typical fund cycle is 10 years. Some will extend it to 12. With all of us, I mean, if we were a fund cycle within an ESO, we're still in our very first fund cycle. We haven't started our second fund yet, so we're still really early. And now, some of these companies, we're starting to see a few acquisitions or successful exits. So hopefully, we're changing the culture in the sense of, when there's successful exits, those people that are now high wealth and we saw a return will invest more money and change the culture over time. But it is going to, it's going to take 20, 25 years, and we're just barely halfway through that cycle.
Well, and that cycle it's
continuous.
And it's those people who do see success. I would be interested in the top 10 the top 12 and a half states in that city, or in that poll, where in that statistic, I guess it's not a poll, like, are those the 12 most wealthiest places too, and those people are funding it back in, because I think, you who are the 10 wealthiest people in Virginia? Are they investing in startups in the same way that the 10 wealthiest people in California and Massachusetts are? And I would just wonder if that cycle is happening.
Top quartile is basically Midwest to West. I mean,
wow.
Apart from this is interesting, Georgia's in the top quartile, and North Carolina's in the second quartile.
Yeah,
there's a lot of major universities in Georgia.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of major businesses there. So, but it's also like, I think, yes, reciprocate and give back, but at the same time, like, some people don't want to invest in companies that way, and that's a piece too that can be difficult for them to want to get into.
It's interesting.
You look at you look at Dell in Austin, and when they went public, all the Dellionaires that were created, and how Microsoft changed Seattle, and then Amazon changed Seattle. I mean, when you have those successful exits like that, and people just overnight become millionaires because the company went public, I mean, you can't help but like give back to the community. I mean, you just have so much disposable income at that point that it all works. So we're getting closer, and as Richmond and Hampton Roads continue to get closer and closer to one another, what's the most mature company in the Richmond area, Richard, in terms of like successful raises? Has there been any Series B companies up in Richmond?
Yes, you got Qualify right now. Used to be West Creek Financial. They did Series C a Series C a couple years ago. You obviously had Carlots that made it public as well. We just had Major Clarity that had a good sale. And Joe is an amazing founder who has worked really hard and has grown a great company. So that's probably one of our most recent sales. We've had another one, though I'm not sure if it's public yet, so I can't disclose there. So it's like you say, that wave is there and it's happening. Like, you got these startups from 10 years ago that are now starting to get acquired, and hopefully those founders continue the company, and they have, if it's a private equity, they end up selling and they can reinvest in our flow. You got Granova as well. So I think you definitely and we got some really good and upcoming. Last year 6 of our members closed the Series A round, so that's a good sign for future years.
Do you feel like that story is being told? So like those companies that the 4 or 5 companies that you just talked about that are close to exiting, have exited, are on the brink of it. Do you feel like that story is being saturated into the market the way that it needs to, the same as some other stuff is? And how important is that happening, and what is being done to make that happen in a bigger thing? I think that's a big piece missing here, right? Like, you don't even know the top 5 businesses, right? Unless you happen to see some chamber award that's saying these are the top 10 companies to look at, or something like that. Like, that's really it, and that's one day, and like, you don't really follow. I know Startwheel or Innovate Hampton Roads does some of that, but there's only it's like it's still that missing cycle where people aren't talking about it, maybe not on a daily basis, but on a pretty regular basis. Like, is that happening in Richmond? And if it is, what are they doing? What are you guys doing to actually promote that?
Zack, I think it's happening. It's similar to you guys. It's happening within our bubble. So we're all aware.
I guess that's what I'm getting. The bubble. People know it.
How do we get it outside of the bubble? I think it's still something that we all need to work on as across the state. Not just Virginia, not just Central Virginia. It's
interesting. I went to a Jelly Roll concert a couple weeks ago. I had no idea about them, and this makes me think of just like music and how it was shared, right? And so one of my good friends from college was like, "We should go to this show," and I was like, oh, "Okay, that's cool." And I went, and I loved the concert. It was a great time. I wonder if that scenario happens from a business perspective, where people are like, "Oh, you should check this out." It's like that share button, and in with people who you would never expect to see that, right? Yes, in the same bubble, but is that like to that next step? It's like, "Oh, you should go watch this TV show. oh, you should watch, you should listen to this thing. Does that business thing happen? That same scenario happen from a business perspective to people?
I think this is an example of it happening here. I mean, so we have the Richmond market and the Hampton Roads market. We're talking about that here, and it all started like with the newsletter that we send out every Tuesday. I would get some stuff and include it because, again, knowing the founders will be more than happy to drive 50, 60 miles to Richmond to attend something. And then Richard and I started talking, and it was like, gosh, you guys are doing, and the more I dug in, it was like, gosh, you're doing really great stuff. Let's continue to talk about this. And maybe these two bubbles can then form and make a bigger bubble. But it's all starting to happen.
I agree. And not to toot Tim's horn, but I do think his newsletter is a benchmark for anyone else in Virginia. I think it's fantastic. I do like the Tim take. It means I don't have to read the article. It's awesome. No, but I think you've done a remarkable job with that. And, I think it's how, like, you look at like how our Startup Virginia certificate program, we're just now designing for 757. The ODU program is centered around that. I think that is our way of being able to expose entrepreneurship affordably to anyone else in Virginia. So I think that even though that program's all online, those connections we're able to make with the organizations who want to leverage it starts that collaboration and that partnership, which I think is
So if you can, so let's close the loop on that real quick. So the listeners from Hampton Roads that are listening to this show and they're like, gosh, I want to get plugged into Startup Virginia. What is the best way for the people in our region to connect with Startup Virginia? What can they take advantage of?
All right. So, so there's multiple ways, really. I would say that if you're a local, if you're in the 757 area and you're working on a scalable tech product, then, you should look at 757 Angels or 757 Collab, or even a small lit in their studio. There's a lot of benefit with leveraging your local ecosystem and the expertise that they have. So if you're working on that, then that's a great first step. If you're working in a more traditional small business front, then we have an online tool called the Entrepreneur Certificate, which is a 9 course that you can take online. It takes about 8 hours. And we offer free scholarships to go through it. So most of the time it's at no costs. So you can either go through 757, we're just building out that page right now, or straight to our website and request a scholarship, and we'll give you a code to participate in that. Or you could, if you want a bit more structuring, you could apply to the ODU program, which they leverage the Startup Virginia's course, but then they build mentoring around it. So that's another avenue you could do. And I think they're doing that partnership with 757 as well. And then the Idea Factory program that you all have been really kind to help spread the word on. If you want to validate your idea and are okay with coming to Richmond 2 times for an evening, then that is definitely a program that you can dig into and apply. And we've had a great response from the beach area. I think except for at 11, we've had over 70 applications. And I think north of 20 of them is from the beach area. So,
wow.
So I think honestly, over the last year, I think the collaboration between both regions and extending, what they call the mega region, I think it's really, really off going well. And, a Venture South is just, combined with 757 Angels, and we have a local Venture South chapter as well. So I can see Paul and I and Noel doing a lot more work on the funding side to try and build a more robust angel network for the mega region as well.
And that's one of the things that the founders that are listening, that I'm always really clear when I meet with a founder, but then the founders that are listening here today, it's not you're not choosing sides per se. We're all in this together. So if you leverage Startup Virginia, it's not one or the other. You can choose both. And if you can expand your network and build off of the networks that we've all created, it's a win for everybody. So leverage what you can and use it to your advantage. You're not picking sides.
How can someone leverage that things, right? So I think I have some ideas of what someone could do, but what are most people not doing that you think that they should do then?
Well, I think that I think that some people think that, well, if I've gone to this accelerator, that I can't go to another accelerator, or if I've gone to this co-working space, that I can't go to that co-working space. Just in the sense of, they don't want to upset the apple cart if they were to, quote unquote, switch sides. Whereas with like me, for example, I would recommend, like, if you're an early stage founder and you're trying to validate, or if you're getting ready to go through a fundraising cycle, I would say, hey, go talk to Richard, go to Startup Virginia, and see if you can set up a day where you can meet with as many founders up there and practice your pitch with them and get some feedback. And maybe they will give you, one, valuable feedback on your pitch. Two, they may have, they can open up their network of potential people that would want to either be customers, investors, or whatever the case is. And then third off, if you're able to practice that pitch with 30 people at Startup Virginia, then you're now 30 times better because you've practiced that pitch 30 times more. So, I mean, like, that would be a way that you could leverage. But Richard, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's great about all entrepreneurship organizations in Virginia is that there's an open door mentality. And we all have a founder first view. Like, whatever we can do to help the founder is really what comes across. And if not us, then who, is also a question that we ask ourselves all the time when someone else comes through the door. So yeah, we do a monthly pitch practice lunch where we invite our members to come and listen to pitches, and it's founders giving and mentors giving feedback to other founders, and it allows founders also to view pitches so they can learn how to do it. And one of those courses that we have at the Entrepreneur Certificate course, which you can just do that course if you want, is all about pitching, and it was done by John Polk, one of our mentors, and I really, really like it. And it's typically a really good first step for folks who are trying to build out their pitch deck.
Yeah. One of the things that was interesting at this offsite that we had for the Virginia network was VIPC. They track something about multiple organizations, how many founders have used multiple organizations. And the thing that was really interesting about that, when it first brought up, everybody, like, they were thinking that was a negative. But then it was like, no, as you think about this really should be a positive, that, okay, if this particular company is going to VIPC trying to get money from the commercialization fund, and they already have that stamp that, all right, they've gone through Startup Virginia, they've gone through 757 Collab, they've gone through Reactor. If you had 3 stamps on your passport, that's a good thing in this. It's not a duplication of effort. It's like, this is my passport on my journey. I am now more seasoned and ready to go. So listen to me, what I have to say.
Yeah, idea validation is becoming huge, right? Like, you need to spend time validating your idea and identifying your customer. Like, you just need to do the time to do that. And if you don't, then it's just going to be significantly harder for you. But there are resources to help you do that. So it's taking advantage of those resources to do that.
Well, let's use that in a different example. What's your favorite TV show, right? You rewatch it, and there's tons of stuff that you never caught before because, for whatever reason, you got a text from someone, or you weren't in it as deep as you wanted to be. Like, do things multiple times, right? There's plenty of, one of my favorite movies is Pitch Perfect. There's certain things that I see in that movie every time. I'm like, oh, I never noticed that before, and I've watched that a ton of times, right? And so, by looking at these things from multiple angles, from multiple people, that's an opportunity for you to learn more and maybe inch a little bit closer. Yeah,
no, 100%. I think you're 100% right.
When someone says that's Switzerland, what goes through your mind?
That's Switzerland.
That, like, they're like, yeah, that's Switzerland. Like, not the country.
Well,
but
first, I'm glad they didn't say Sweden. So that's the first one. Because that's what I get most of the time. I mean, I think that they probably say that's neutral, right?
Why is that, though?
Because we're a neutral country. Don't take stuff. We're like we're the place where people convene to make decisions, but we don't make them.
Okay, well, there you go. I never knew. I've heard it, and I was like,
No.
I don't get it.
I mean, I'll use that phrase. If I have no, if I'm neutral in some sort of situation, discussion, or whatever, I'll be like, hey, I'm Switzerland in this, man. I like, I've no dog in this fight.
Well, I figure there's no better person to ask than someone who's from Switzerland. And
Yeah.
so Richard is from there. So I've been holding back that question for like 6 years, just waiting to meet someone from Switzerland. So here we are. Thank you.
Yeah.
For
and
coming
that's why
into my life.
that's where there's WIPO, United Nations, that's why they're all located there.
Got it.
It's very, very, people forget Switzerland's a lot further south than people think. Like, you must snow there all the time. No, it doesn't. It's only 4 hours away from the south of France. Like, it snows in the mountains. It doesn't snow much in the cities. Yes, the chocolate is absolutely amazing. Yes, it's incredibly expensive. Incredibly. But it's very well run. And it is clean. It is beautiful. And if you were to go, unless you're a skier, but even if you're a skier, I would say you should go out west, is to definitely go in the summer. I mean, it's absolutely breathtaking in the summer.
You've lived in the States for 20 years.
Yep.
Yeah. So like, did you take anything from Switzerland that like you use now, that like, not like physically, but like something from life from there that you learn that you still use, that helps you get through? I mean, maybe it's just the neutral mindset.
Really, like, I'll be honest with you, like, when you're born in Switzerland and raised, I went to boarding school in England, so that's why I have more of an Anglo-Saxon culture. I like more of the craft beers and the pub culture and stuff like that. So and my mother's English, so I definitely have more of an Anglo-Saxon culture to our family. Though my dad is Swiss, and we tracked our family back to the 1600s. So very Swiss origins, but I forgot what was the question again right at the beginning. Like,
is there anything just from like the Switch culture that you?
Yeah, but you were basically like growing up. I knew I was going to end up being a banker. Like, it never like. I knew I was going to leave college and join a bank, and that's exactly what I did. And it's just weird. It's like it's entrenched in you.
Wow.
My dad was a banker, and both my brothers were bankers, but in different areas. But still, but like, have I taken any of those skill sets to America? No, I think that's the great thing about America, is that you can find where your passion is. And I think my passion around entrepreneurship and workforce development, nonprofit, was during my time at the Chamber. I spent 14 years at Chamber RVA here, and just realized that I really enjoy doing mission purpose work, but with more of a for-profit attitude. I generally believe if you're running a nonprofit, you're running a business. And if you're fortunate to have a year where you have proceeds, you just reinvest it into the business. That's the only difference. But I really, was thankful for those years at the Chamber. It taught me a lot, and it created amazing passion for Central Virginia, especially. I love it here. My wife is an entrepreneur, started her own business here. It's a wonderful quality of life. And I think the one thing that America does better than any other country in the world is that if you do want to start your own adventure, no matter what it is, you can. And I think that's awesome.
So true. And it's amazing to me. Entrepreneurship is alive and well, especially from those that come to our country from outside of our country. I mean, it's stunning. Well, the people that are born and raised, they for whatever reason, they just don't see it as much. It is, you can make whatever it is that you want to make. You just have to have the desire. Sure. With that said, I get this question all the time. And I'm curious to your response. Maybe you can help me craft my response better. But you get someone that walks into Startup Virginia and they want to skip steps. They want to take the elevator to the top, and they immediately want to have introductions to investors. And it's just like, whoa. Just slow down. What's your response to someone that has that question?
Yeah, thank you for coming. I mean, honestly, like, it's also not good for the community, right? Because then they start reaching out to your mentor network, investor network. Like, we will not do introductions unless you're ready. So it's really like, we really can't help you. If you're going to, and we get that a lot. If you get an established founder who believes they have an idea that's worth investing in, and they're just coming to us for money, then it's like, we're not the right organization for you. Simple. Good luck to you. If you need any help, let us know. But we're not the right fit.
Amen to that. I mean, I just, because that's my thing too. And I'm sure that you're in the same boat in the sense of, I've worked 12 years to build this reputation, and I am not going to take a person that just walks in, not knowing anything about them, not knowing anything about their business, what their pitch, the business model, anything, and then just start leaving it up to chance that they're going to knock this thing out of the park.
I'll tell you what I will take in, though. I will take in someone who fits the criteria for the incubator, but is just joining us for space, because we can change that mindset. Sometimes sometimes you don't know what they have until it's in front of you, and you're like, oh, sure. Crap, I need this help, and they can help me. We've had plenty of instances where we've just allowed people to come and work out of our space, be part of the incubator, but slowly continue to ask, how can we help? And then proving that we can help. Because while we have amazing space, we want to be known for the work that we do and the programs that we offer and the connections that we make.
Well, not everyone can pitch for people to understand the first time, right? And so they might even say something to you and it's like, I don't get it. But it's like, by you opening the doors and letting them see that, I mean, I think it's incredibly valuable. So on Tim's point about introductions, so I remember, gosh, maybe a decade ago, maybe a little less than that, I was on a panel at this thing called the Honor Foundation, which I think is about Navy veterans that are getting out. And everyone on the panel with me was like, ask for introductions, give introductions to everyone. I was like, look, I understand why you guys are saying that, but the introductions that I provide have to be very meaningful and powerful. And if I just start throwing my entire network out to everyone, those people that I'm giving it to, if I haven't seen the credibility, if there's credibility lost in there, they're going to stop looking at my introductions as being valuable if I just give everyone to everyone. And I don't think people talk about that. I think people just just make introductions. It'll be great. It's be very cautious in who you introduce and to who and at what point, because that's an incredibly important aspect to continuing to grow the 12-year Tim Ryan brand. Because if you just start, again, throwing that out there, people are going to get ticked off you and they're not going to respect that. And they might not even respond to it if you just start throwing crap at them.
Yeah. And I think, our mentor networks evolved a lot over the last 5-6 years. And I think a lot of ESOs around the country, that the mentor networks that they set up with end up changing pretty drastically along the way. But I think that's one thing that that Noel and Laura on our team do really well, is asking permission before doing the introduction and explaining why we want to make that connect. And I think that's vitally important to help that first conversation be more successful, rather than just doing the connection and you get a surprise inbox, right? But saying that, we do have a mentor network that's saying, if you are okay with just being reached out to founders, then we do have a database that you say that you're okay, you're up for it, do it. But we also have a list of mentors that we call strategic, where we're going to ask for your permission first. So that allows you to get different types of mentors and who have different ambitions and wishes. But those definitely seem to be the ones that are most successful.
Because the other side of that coin is when you have a company and a founder that has gone through the steps and they've checked every box in the way that they should. When you do send that introduction to potential investors, they're going to take the meeting. They're going to open the email. They're going to take the meeting. And you have to reward the people that have taken the right steps. And you have to protect it.
I would love that Rolodex of investors to be bigger. I feel bad sometimes. I always go to the same people, I think they're ready. You should have a conversation with them. But yeah, I think I'd say more on the angel stuff, right? I think with VIPC and the CCF fund commercialization, Commonwealth Commercialization Fund, Zack, which used to be a lot more focused towards higher ed and their R&D developments, they basically expanded that to allow organizations like Startup Peninsula, 757, SDT, all the ESOs in Virginia, to have their founders apply for that if they've done customer validation work. So that's opened up a nice pool. So the addition of that has allowed us to get people ready for that. But the next step, which is basically angel investment, convertible notes, or small equity rounds, that's still, I would love to grow that a little bit more. And I think that's a lot of education, more financial education on why startup investing can be appealing if you're a high net worth individual. But to your point beforehand, those who tend to really play in that game are those who have had previous exit from this kind of sector. And we just, hopefully we'll get more of them down the road. And it's a marathon for sure.
Curious, Rich, what's a favorite golf course that you've ever played?
Oh, that's a really good one. Ballybunion Island.
Wow.
which I did with my dad when I was 17.
Where's that?
In Ireland. So it's a traditional links golf course. So that probably was the one that I have the most. I'm a member of a club here called Willow Oaks, which I absolutely adore. I'm a very biased and faithful member, but I absolutely love that golf course. And if I was going to say one on the East Coast, Harbour Town is probably my favorite.
Where's that located?
Hilton Head.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love golf courses where you have to have a green and a tee right next to it. If you have to go in a cart to get to the next tee, then I will automatically dismiss you no matter how good you are.
Tim, when was the last time you golfed, Tim?
It's been a while. I'm so busy now that, one, I'm busy. And because I'm so busy, combine that fact that it's really expensive. And then if I do have, on the off chance I have a free day on a weekend, I have a really tough time saying, family, I know you haven't seen me, but I'm taking off for 4 or 5 hours to go play golf. So it's been a really, really long time.
I used to golf. I think we said this a couple weeks ago. I used to golf like once or twice a week at the ODU course with Jay Livingood and founder of Yellow Dog Software. And then I don't know what happened. I guess I got too busy to do it. And not that I was good, because look, he was like a scratch golfer. I think the greatest I ever hit was like +7 on one hole. I don't even know what that is. Like 4 over par. Yeah, that's probably the best I've ever done. But that's why I like Topgolf, because you can go there for like an hour, hit the crap out of a ball, impress a couple people that you can hit it far. It ain't accurate, but you can hit it far. I once hit the net, and people were like, "Wow, that's impressive." I was like, "Well, yeah, I hit 100 balls. I only hit one of them, but
it's the one shot that brings it back next time. That's all it takes is the one shot."
Yes, right.
I think that's a very
it's my meditation. Right? It's been a big part of my life. Played in college, I played for my country, and it's that break I give to myself try at least once or twice a week. Now that my kids are teenagers and they don't really care about me being around, it's a lot easier to do that for sure.
What's something we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
Good question. Tim, I would love to know, can you give me the 30-second elevator pitch of Startup Peninsula? Because I don't think I know that organization well enough.
On which organization?
Startup Peninsula.
Oh, yeah. So Startup Peninsula, we're in our 12th year for that. And truth be told, that Zack back in the day had something called Start Norfolk. And Start Peninsula was modeled after Start Norfolk. It started as a weekend pitch competition. And what we found was after that weekend, nobody did anything until it was time to get ready for the next one next year. It was held every November. So we extended everything to make it a year-round set of activities. We added Pitch Perfect to help people perfect their pitch. So now what it comes down to, we have 4 micro pitch competitions that we do. We do it in March and in April. Then we take the summer off, and then we have September and October. Each of those micro pitch competitions has 10 people that pitch, and the top 3 from each of those micro pitch events that advance to the championship round. The championship round is then held in November. This year is November 8th. So what that makes then is the top 12 pitchers of the year for our area, and then they pitch November 8th. And the top 3 pitchers, they get $5,000 in seed funding, and then places 4 through 12, they get $500. The whole idea then is, one, it's year-round. If you pitch in March or April, you have to continue to work on your business throughout the rest of the course of the year. You can't just show up in November and say, I haven't done anything. So it helps the engagement. Again, it's the competition level. It is the top 12 pitchers of the year, and it's worked out really well for us.
That's great. Well, I need to come to that.
Well, we do, and the great thing is we do everything online. Everything is all done via Zoom.
Is it really?
Yeah, because everything used to be in person before COVID, but once COVID happened, and we experienced online. We didn't have to worry about tunnel traffic. We didn't, because we would get people from Virginia Beach going to Williamsburg when, depending on where the location was. And it simplified everything. We didn't have to pay for food and find vendors and food sponsors and all that kind of stuff.
Grab a beer and watch it on my computer.
Yeah.
I love that.
And people don't realize how expensive food is. When you're buying food for a lot of people, like.
But I think that one of the more successful companies that we had go through Star Peninsula was Answers Now, and they seem to be killing it.
They've been they're one of the 6 who closed their Series A round last year. They've been with us since the beginning too.
Yeah,
Jeff
great.
Absolutely amazing job, and I think leveraged the tools available to him, and now it's become, frankly, like one of the folks that we send our aspiring founders to, is for him to coach and give advice to.
Is that I have a special needs kid and I need an answer now while I'm somewhere?
For autistic children.
For autistic,
Yeah, I think it's expanding beyond orders of now. But
was that in person in Newport News or Hampton?
It was in Hampton. Yep. Yeah, it was in Hampton, and then they came back, and they were one of the companies that pitched to Jason Calacanis when he was in town. And Jason really, really liked that business. He wanted to invest in that business.
I think I remember. I think I was a judge that year, or something. I was something there that year.
I think you were. Yeah, I think you were.
Memory Lane, a place that is a fun time. Richard, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you.
One thing I'd like to quickly close with, if you can, we do. If anyone is interested in learning more, please obviously reach out to my info's on the website. But also, I think, one thing that we're very proud of at Startup Virginia is that we don't want cost to be a barrier. So we do offer a lot of scholarships. A third of our members are actually scholarship into our incubator and space. Last year, we gave out over $500,000 worth of scholarships, including our online programming. So, if any aspiring entrepreneur in Central Virginia or outside, but, again, I encourage leveraging local resources, is interested, and our application is online. I'm happy to have that conversation. Idea Factory program is open. That is a free program. Go ahead and submit your great ideas. And and then lastly, there's other organizations that want to leverage the Entrepreneur Certificate course that we offer. We can white label it for you and provide you free discount codes for your constituents. We are trying that with youth right now. It seems to be a little successful. So those are all actionable items that we can take if anybody's interested.
That's awesome. Richard, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Lots of maybe grab a beer in person.
That'd be awesome.